Hey, what's up YouTube? Alex here, and in this video, I'm gonna be running you through one of my favorite data-driven sports betting strategies. I realized I hadn't actually made a full YouTube video on this, and I've used it for the past 5 years. I'm up hundreds of thousands of dollars in tracked profit. I use a verified bet tracker called Pickett Sports, but this is a data-driven sports betting strategy that I'm gonna run you through. And again, I'm a data-driven bettor. I don't wake up and place bets with my gut. I love sports, I watch sports, but I don't use, I honestly don't really use sports knowledge to make my bets, right? 99% of sports bettors lose money long-term, and guess what? They all watch sports. So if you're trying to beat the books, you need to use data-driven betting strategies that are proven to win long-term. So without further ado, let's get into the cross-market betting strategy. This works for straight bets, it works for round robins, and it also works for parlays. So let's get into it. So you've probably heard me talk about arbitrage betting. I love arbitrage betting. This video though, it's not about arbitrage betting, but it's important to understanding this strategy. So arbitrage, here's an example from the OddsJam Arbitrage Tool for game 1 of Pacers-Cavs. Arbitrage is when two sports books have such different odds. All of these books want to be unique, so they all set their own odds. And arbitrage is quite simply when two books have such different odds that you can bet the over on one book, the under on a different book, equal and opposite outcomes to guarantee a risk-free profit. So in this scenario, I could bet Neesmith's over on FanDuel, his under on rebet, and if I do it in the proper proportion, following an arbitrage calculator, I'll make a small risk-free profit. And again, the reason that arbitrage betting is possible in the first place is all of these books, the market is so fragmented, they all set their own odds. So you can see Neesmith over 2.5 threes. FanDuel has this priced at plus 200. Rebet, another sports book for the exact same bet, is super different. They have this at plus 142. So obviously, I'd rather bet 100 to win 200 on FanDuel as opposed to 100 to win 142 on Rebet. But basically, this video, again, it's not about arbitrage betting. However, whenever there's arbitrage, whenever the market is crossed, that's the word that I like to use. Whenever the market is crossed, you can bet equal and opposite outcomes to guarantee a profit. We know one side of the ARB has to be a profitable bet, a plus EV bet, right? It's impossible. If I can bet the over on FanDuel, the under on Rebet, and guarantee a risk-free profit, one of these two bets has to be a plus EV bet or a profitable bet, right? Either the over on FanDuel at plus 200 or the under on Rebet at minus 198. One of the two bets has to be, by definition, a profitable plus EV, positive EV wager. Because again, I could just bet both of them following an arbitrage calculator and guarantee a profit. In this case, the profit's very small, but the point holds. One of these two bets, either FanDuel or Rebet, has to be a profitable bet. So basically what I like to do is kind of camp on the arbitrage tool. I put in all the sports books I use, look for crossed markets, figure out which side is plus EV, and just bet that. So in this example, I played Neesmith over 2.5 threes. You may be like, why did you bet this random dollar amount? And that's just what FanDuel limited me to. The sports betting market, it's not that liquid. You can't bet whatever you want on any bet. So this is just the max FanDuel gave me, like 93.75 or whatever. But basically, this is a crossed market. We know one of the two bets has to be a plus EV wager. And if you look at all other sports books, right? No other book is offering Neesmith's over above plus 165 odds. So it's pretty clear that, hey, in this scenario, FanDuel is messing up and offering way too much value on Neesmith at plus 200. That's the plus EV bet. Rebet has pretty similar odds to all the other sports books. So in this case, it was pretty clear. FanDuel's the outlier. Plus 200 is incredible value. We already know by definition, right? This is a data-driven betting strategy. Either the over at plus 200 or the under at minus 198 is profitable. And it's really easy to determine just by checking the market, looking at all other sports books, that yeah, FanDuel is messing up and offering way too much value on Neesmith at plus 200. So that's what I bet. So this is probably a little theoretical. So what I wanted to do is just kind of show how this works in practice. So the first thing I do is pull up the OddsJam Arbitrage Tool, which again is just going to point out crossed markets when two books are so out of sync you can make a risk-free profit. I put in the sports books that I use, that I bet on, like FanDuel. You know, I'm in Virginia, so I use basically every book in Virginia: FanDuel, Caesars, DraftKings, whatever. And I also put in sharp books like Pinnacle and Bet Online and Circa. Let's see if I have Circa selected. So now I have, you know, all these books selected. So Pinnacle, it's not even a book that's legal in the US, but again, it's known to be a pretty sharp book. So I'll give you an example of a play that I'm gonna lock in. Is check this out for tomorrow. We have the Blues-Jets game. FanDuel has the over at minus 115. Bet Online has the under at plus 120. So one of these two bets, by definition, has to be profitable or plus EV. So let's pull it up on FanDuel. Over 5 goals, minus 115. And let's see how much they let me bet. So they're going to let me bet 143.75. And again, we know for a fact, either the over at minus 115 or the under at plus 120, one of these two bets has to be plus EV. We could even randomly flip a coin and just bet one side. One of these two bets has to be profitable. But if you do a quick scan of every other sports book, I mean, FanDuel is arbitrage to Bovada. So again, like if you're in, you know, Canada and you have access to Pinnacle, it's not available in the US, but I still look at their odds. It's known to be a pretty sharp, accurate sports book. So I still look at Pinnacle's odds as a source of information. But you can see FanDuel is arbitrage with so many different sports books. I mean, FanDuel basically is giving us the same price, the same odds on both the over and the under, whereas every other book has the over massively favored. FanDuel is crossed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so many different books. So it's pretty clear that, yeah, FanDuel is messing up. That's the side with value that I want to lock in. So I locked it in. So that's an example of using the arbitrage tool. So again, even though I personally don't bet on Pinnacle, I'm still looking at their odds, their lines as a source of information. So I still like to have it on my arbitrage tool. So we can go through, you know, a couple more examples. I don't want to waste people's time because once I start betting, sometimes it's hard to stop betting. But here's another one, right? FanDuel, Pinnacle, crossed. I could bet both. If I was in Canada, I could bet both of these, guarantee a risk-free profit. Just a quick scan of the market. Again, I follow a super data-driven approach. One of these two bets, by definition, has to be plus EV or profitable. FanDuel is crossed with Sport Trade, which is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. It's really clear the values on the FanDuel side. So let's pull this up. They're going to let me bet 59.52. Nope, 59.50. I apologize. So I'm going to lock in this bet, and then I'm just going to hide it from my arbitrage tool because I already locked in the play. So again, we could keep doing this with DraftKings. I mean, I do this all day long. Like, you can place bets on DraftKings. So in this case, you know, kind of random bet. I don't even know what this league is, AHL. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you know what league it is. We know one of these two bets, either plus 185 or minus 175, one of those two bets has to be profitable because I could bet both and guarantee a risk-free profit. So if I was in Canada and I was like, yo, I don't even know what these two teams are, you know, I could just arbitrage bet it, make a risk-free $10. But long story short, let's see here. Another one, another over for the Blues game. So it's pretty clear FanDuel's offering a lot of value in this Blues game. Over 1.5 third period goals. FanDuel has this at -130, arbitrage to Pinnacle. So either Pinnacle, which is known to be a really sharp book, or FanDuel. One of those two bets is offering value, a plus EV, a mathematically profitable positive ROI wager, because again, I could bet the over, the under, make a risk-free profit if I were in Canada and had access to Pinnacle. So, pretty clear value on the FanDuel side. All these other books have the line around -170. So again, more bets is better. Basically, I just sit on the arbitrage tool and fire off as, many bets as I can in a given night. So here, definitely seems like the values on the DraftKings side. +125 on the under. I could bet the over on Novig, the under on DraftKings, make a risk-free profit. One of those two bets has to be profitable. Seems like the values on the DraftKings side in this example. But let's continue going. Let's see if there's anything else on FanDuel, because FanDuel is the book I'm currently logged into. And then some plays I'll skip over or I'll arbitrage bet because it's not always clear. So for example here, it definitely seems like the values on the Ballybet side, -150 on Cal Maker, under half of a power play point, kind of random betting market. But again, Ballybet is arbitrage to BetMGM, a bunch of other books. The books offering two-way markets, odds on the under, they have this around -250 to go under. So it definitely seems like in this scenario, the under on Ballybet is definitely the side with value. But let me get rid of Ballybet real quickly just because I'm not logged into it. And let's see if there's anything else that we fall in love with real quickly. Here's another one. It's not really clear. +142. It's not like FanDuel's a massive outlier. Man, there are a lot of books to go through. Oh, baby. So here's one. I very much so like Christian Braun over 10.5 points. So FanDuel is arbitrage to not only Novig, but also ProfitX. These are peer-to-peer betting exchanges. And you can see on the betting exchange, these are peer-to-peer. Somebody is offering about $6,000, 5.7K on Christian Braun to go under at +125, which means that person is trying to take the opposing side, Braun's over, at -125. So long story short, and again, the difference is ProfitX charges, it's a peer-to-peer betting exchange. They charge a small 3% fee on winning wagers, which is why ProfitX says +125 is the odds, whereas OddsJam says +121 because it just bakes in that 3% fee. But long story short, clearly someone has a very strong opinion that Braun is, going over. So I actually like this a lot. 240, bang. So there we go. We got another bet locked in. Again, I could arbitrage bet it, guarantee a profit, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not logged into Caesars, so let me get rid of that quickly. This play I'm going to hold off on. You can see some other books are offering better prices. I'm just not logged into them right now. This one, it's not really clear in my opinion. Batum over 6.5 points and under 6.5 points. Do I have Novig selected? Give me one sec. Yeah, I do. So, Steven Adams rebounds. So here's one on Fliff. So Fliff is a sweepstakes book that's available in basically every state. So this is Steven Adams rebounds. You can see Fliff is the only book with Adams favored to go under or juiced. All these other books have his over heavily favored. This is across market. This is arbitrage. So we know one of these two bets has to be profitable by definition. And in my opinion, it's pretty clear that the value's on the over. Where is Steven Adams? Boom, $1,000. Again, usually I'm just betting the max that they give me. So in this case for Steven Adams, it's $1,000. Again, Fliff's the only book with the under favored. It's arbitrage to bet on the line. You could bet both, guarantee a risk-free profit. Like I could go over to this other book, bet the under at 929, make a risk-free profit. Look at that. Fliff already adjusted their odds. They know I'm a sharp customer. They don't want too much of my action. So this play on pod, again, I just kind of like to hide the bets where I don't have a super, strong opinion. But let's see if there's anything else. This play I actually already bet. Bailey over 6.5 strikeouts at plus 300. Crossed market, arbitrage. So you can see my max wager is 0 because I already bet it. But let's see. Norman Powell. So you can see Pinnacle. FanDuel has the under favored. Pinnacle, known to be a pretty sharp book. They have the over pretty heavily favored, right? Where did they go? They may have just moved the line. But anyways, this is arbitrage. I don't really have a strong opinion there. Obviously, as you get lower and lower in terms of the profit margin, it becomes a little less clear sometimes. But let's see this play. Chris Bubick. Plus 144 on FanDuel. FanDuel is arbitrage to rebet. It's also arbitrage to bet online. No other book offering above plus 130. It definitely seems like this play has value. I may have already locked it in. Yeah, I did. So they're giving me $0. So again, I like to camp on this arb tool. And again, why it's amazing is we know literally for a fact one of the two bets has to be profitable. And if it's not clear, so for example, in this example on Batum, I don't necessarily really think it's clear which side has value. Like you can see Pinnacle, which is known to be a pretty sharp book, as well as Bet Online. They have Batum's over favored, right? Pretty similar to rebet. But then Caesars and ProfitX have the under favored. So this may be a play, for example, where I just say, hey, I'll just arbitrage bet it. I'll take the risk-free money and I won't overthink it because it's not clear which side has value. I haven't used, where is Batum? So here he is. This is actually slightly different odds, minus 108. So they might have just bumped it. I'm not sure how much they're going to take. They're going to take 815.73. So again, in this scenario, I don't necessarily think it's clear which one of these is profitable. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, whatever, I'm just going to take the risk-free money available to me, 815.73. The odds were actually minus 108. So I'm going to take the risk-free profit of $7.19. Again, ProfitX says the odds are plus 113, but they take, it's a peer-to-peer betting exchange. So the way they make money, right? They don't make money when you lose money. That's why ProfitX, they'll never limit you. They'll never ban you. So you're not actually getting plus 113. It's plus 113 minus 3%. So OddsJam just factors that in. You're actually getting plus 110. So in this scenario, I just arbitrage bet it. Rebet gave me this as my max. I just followed the calculator. Bet 748.11 on the under. What I have noticed about rebet is sometimes they'll let me rebet a prop. Maybe that's why it's called a rebet. I don't know. So if I try to bet it again, are they going to take 0? Yeah, they're going to take nothing. Okay, so I can get rid of this bet. And basically, this is all I do all day, every day. So Norman Powell, Kawhi. What do we think, man? Let's see what else we got. So Bailey Ober, I already locked this in. Let me just hide it. My bad. Jokic, I don't really think it's clear, and the arbitrage bet isn't even that enticing, so I'm just going to skip that over. Murray, I don't really think it's clear. Again, as you get lower and lower in terms of percentage, the same thing is true, right? One of these two bets has to be profitable, but sometimes I'm like, okay, it's not necessarily clear. Like here, I don't really think it's necessarily clear. Is the plus 111 on the under or the minus 108? Dang. Now ProfitX, you can see on the exchange, they just moved the odds. It looks like to plus 123. Nope, back down to minus 108. So let's see how much FanDuel even lets me bet on this. So they're going to let me bet 216 max. Again, all these books determine your max betting limit. Unfortunately, we don't. So this arbitrage bet, I'm not making as much money. I'm only making 284 risk-free. But I mean, this game starts in a couple hours. 284 risk-free isn't particularly bad. For clicking a couple buttons, bang, got it locked in. FanDuel just adjusted their odds. So there is a speed component here. There is a speed component here. What is going on Kawhi? What's the deal with Kawhi, guys? So, let me refresh this real briefly. So you can see bet online, I mean, so maybe this is the last play. Well, it actually looks like Kawhi moved. So that's basically what I do, right? Sometimes I arbit, I take the risk-free profit. Sometimes it's clear the value's on the FanDuel side. Like in the Blues game, I thought all these plays had extremely clear value. So I just locked them in. But that's kind of how I use the arbitrage tool, find crossed markets. We know one of the two bets has to be plus EV or profitable by definition.